So I wanted to talk about this topic that is coming across in my friend circle and even people that I talk to. It's about the dream job, the American dream job, and
Yes.
about, that it's no longer a realistic, endeavor. They're saying, the debt to the dream job. And before, some of the observations people would make is, what career do you want? Like, that's probably the question. At least I got raised with, say, "What do you want to become?" Do you want to become a firefighter? Do you want to become whatever, right? So the world's your oyster, basically. But that's the older generation was asking. Now I think I'm observing that people ask a lot about, what job's gonna pay, right? What's gonna let you live a sustainable life. Um,
Yeah.
and not only that, are you going to be mentally alive, awake after your work so that you have some work-life balance. So,
Yeah.
what do you think? Do you think that the dream job, like the goals or aspirations for a dream job is still alive?
Yeah, no, I don't think so. I don't think it is anymore, right? I mean, times have changed and like the dynamic of everyone's lifestyle has changed as well because of inflation, right? Like the dream job, I mean, that could mean so many things, whether it's financially or the industry they're in, right? Like they can have a dream job in an industry, but it's not paying well. They can have a dream job, in tech, for example, and it's paying the most, or they can have a dream job as in the culinary world and they become a top chef and stuff like that. So I mean, it's hard to really say. In my opinion, I don't think the dream job, and I think we should define that, by the way. From what I've learned in the past, it's more so you go to college, right? You have a higher education and you go study down a path, and then from that path you kind of move forward and go into whatever sector you're in, and you grow from there, and that becomes your dream job. So I don't think that's there anymore, and I also don't think that I don't think there's such thing as a dream job anymore. Obviously, people might have different opinions. And the reason why I think is because it's like there's so much more attachments to it now, right? Like your dream job, like you can have a dream job, but then it may not pay, and then you still got to pay bills and stuff, right? So like at some point you may not be all in your dream job if you are in a dream job. And then nowadays also with AI and stuff, everything's changing, right? Like what you used to do in the past, or the admin task or operational tasks that you had in the past, where like it's not there no more, and or it's like kind of diminishing. So I don't know. I'm conflicted. I personally don't think there's no such thing as a dream job anymore. But then there are people out there who love teaching, for example, right? Like, and that is their dream job. There's people that are a therapist. That is their dream job, whether it pays more or not. So it's up in the air. What are your thoughts? What do you
Do you
think?
think I think in life, like, you're always going to try to pursue a blend of what you are passionate about and what you want to strive for, right? As well as, something that will bring the money and the lifestyle you kind of want to live, right? But you have to go with it with a realistic expectation. But that depends on if what you're passionate about is a money making career. Or, as you mentioned, right? If your dream job is to become certain professions that, let's say, pays the bill, lets you live a very, you'll sustain, you'll live, you're fine, but you're not going to be able to do like extra things that you might want to do because things are getting expensive. In those situations, yeah, your dream job, you may not pursue that dream job because you're not going to be able to, live the lifestyle you want. Raise, if you have family, if you have kids, etc., right, to be able to raise them and prepare them by
For the
having enough
world.
savings. So I think it depends on your passion and depends on you. I, for example, liked working with computers, right? And I liked how they automated things. So it just happened because I like efficiency, I guess. So one of the qualities in life that I like is efficiency. What's the shortest, most accurate way of getting to results? So it worked out that, you know, computers are still and desirable, right?
For now.
But I think a lot of people are now assessing I or before, whatever you did work, it would pay decent amount of money. You'll be able to do all these sort of extra things you wouldn't. Now, I feel like those same professions may not allow you to live in this more expensive reality. So I feel stability is becoming more attractive than passion. I think that is what we're struggling between. Like, do we pursue stability or do we pursue passion? And it's a
Sure.
question that everyone is thinking about, right? What do you feel that that's what it's coming down to?
Yeah, I think so. I think you're right. I think people are searching for more stability versus what my job is, what my dream job was in the past, or the idea of a dream job, right? I think people are pivoting and they're shifting career paths and they're shifting, um, you know, industries. And I think there's so many reasons and factors that go into the shift. And that also shifts away from what your dream job was in your head, or what you thought you were going to have as a dream job. I definitely want to share something. So like relating to this topic, speaking of a dream job, so I was scrolling, going on social media, scrolling through Facebook, and I saw a post where a guy was talking about he has a job and he's like very successful and happy in the job, but then he was also doing this. I think he had an insurance job or something like that, and then he was doing this. He had his own side business, and the side business was making almost as much money by himself as the only person that's working there, almost as much money as his day job. But he had a finance degree. And so he is doing like insurance, not sales, but like something within insurance. And that he's like, I don't know, he's conflicted that this is kind of like his dream job, but then he's making so much more. He's making almost the same money in his business all by himself. And he's thinking like, if I went full time, I could make like double, triple, if not more. And so he's like, but
Is he
I'm afraid
enjoying
like
the side business as much as his day job?
he is, yeah, and he is. So that's so like there are people on the comment section was saying, well, like I was, well, let me tell you what I said. I said like at the end of the day, this may be a dream job, or this may be a job that gives you flexibility and balance, and whatever this job gives you. You started the side business for a reason, right? Whether it's to earn extra income, to do something on your own. And at the end of the day, at a job, you're just a number, right? You can get fired, you can get laid off, and all that anytime. But in your business, that's something that you get to build on your own with your blood, sweat, and tears. I told him essentially your dream job could be the business that you're building. You just never know. He was talking about in the post that he's embarrassed to like tell his friends and family that he's I forgot what his side business was. It was like something like lawn care or something like that. And he was like, I'm like, I got this finance degree, and I was proud of the education that I have and the career path that I took. Now I'm scared, like I'm embarrassed to tell my family and friends that I have this side business. And then like I wrote back to him, it's like, let me know. I said, let me know if your family members end up paying your bills, because at the end of the day, you got to do what's best for you financially, mentally, emotionally, also, and for your family. Like, if this side business takes off and it makes three, four, 5x of what you're already currently making, I think you'll be in a much happier place. Now, money doesn't equal happiness, but it also gives you the freedom of choice, right? And that, like, to me, a dream job is one that gives you freedom of choice coupled with what you're passionate about. Now, some people may not be passionate about something that they're doing currently, but over time, they learn to become passionate about that thing. And so I just wanted to bring that up because I think this is relevant to what we were just talking about. And like, it just kind of, made me think about that. It's like people who have side businesses and doing things on the side, like, does that become your dream job after a while? Priorities and timelines and, like environment changes for you.
Yeah, and as you mentioned, like that side business might allow him to have 2 to 3x the money that he's making now, right? And that's going to give him, at the end of the day, a quicker route to retirement. Possibly, when I'm thinking of doing lawn stuff, it's very minimal, like maybe physical. There's physical effort, but there's less mental stress, other than project management and whatever. And it might also mean better work-life balance, right? That's something that I feel it's a lot of people want to get from a job, right? And also they want to get from a job, but also not worry about work. Basically, they don't want to worry about job and the stress after they come back home, right? So there's a combination of that also playing in and into play. And one thing that I notice is that I love it how you said they're not the ones paying the bills, right? Because that's very important. I don't think there should be any stigmas against people, judging people based on their type of occupation. I think it is a flex. If you're saying, you know what, I could have been, doing. I'll remember. I always remember this comment that one of my colleagues mentioned. He's like, if I'm gonna make the same amount of salary or more sharpening pencils, right? And that's my title, sharpening pencils. I'll take that because there's much more benefit in it, right? For me in terms of doing the things that I want to do over titles and having less pay. right? And stress. And I laughed at it when I was younger because I was like, well, we went through all this education. We want to pursue, success, recognition, whatever else, right? Something to amount to, all right, I did it, right? I made it. But as I got older, I actually appreciated that remark that he made, even though,
Absolutely.
I was like, oh,
Yeah.
sharpening pencil, I'll get bored. But there was a lot of thought behind that. Speaking of which,
I mean,
right?
I also want to just I also want to add this. I also think that people are creating their own dream jobs. All right. Like, it's not like I want to go work for somebody and that is my dream job. I think people are creating their dream jobs. I'll tell you very quickly. So, like, as you know, we went to this convention, right? Like a couple of weeks ago, this little card thing. And I've seen
What card thing? What card thing? I don't think people know what you're talking about.
yes, 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 yes. So I went to this card show, I guess, convention where they have met different vendors who have like different are selling and buying different kinds of cards.
It's
It's
a
called
trading card
TCG.
convention.
Yeah,
Yeah, TCG
TGC, which is
trading card
traded. Yeah,
convention.
right.
And there
And
are a ton of vendors selling
yeah,
Pokemon cards, One Piece cards, sports
sports
cards,
card.
right?
Yep.
People
Yeah.
also giving their signatures, right? So you could have signed items, so you like
Yeah. Like
voiceovers and things
memorabilia.
like
Yeah.
that
Yeah. Yeah,
for anime.
which was fascinating to me, and where I'm getting at is because I've so that was like the first time I ever experienced going to something like that, and obviously it was just so insane being around that atmosphere. But then the next day we heard like from one of our neighbors like they were going to this local card show, whatever. So we're like, all right, it's like 5 minutes away. Let's go check it out. And so, like, what was more eye opening there for me because the first day it was very intense for me, right? Just so much happening around. The second day was not as busy because it was also a local show. And so when I went there, and we went there like for a few minutes. When I went there, I met this guy, this vendor who apparently he was a buyer all this time, and that was his first time vending. Not only was his first time vending, it's his first time vending full time. So like this was his full time job, and like I don't know how much he made or whatever that day, but the point was he was so happy and ecstatic that like he's like I finally get to open up my own business. Like I was talking to him, and he was like, I finally get to open my business, and like this is what I want to like. I've been in the hobby for so long, and this is what I want to do. And like he left his job, and he just started this like this is his first show as a vendor and him becoming full time at this. Well, like he essentially created his deep dream job, right? And like it was just fascinating to see again. Like I don't know how much money he's gonna make, but it was amazing to see and fascinating to see how people are creating their own dream job, essentially something that they're passionate about, something that they're the ones who are controlling their destiny in terms of how much work they put in and the outcome that comes out. And then at the same time, like probably an hour later, I think we were there around for an hour or so. An hour later, as we were leaving, I heard another vendor go up to another vendor because they know each other. He was like, he made like 4,000 today, right? Like that's what I heard overheard. And I was like, my first reaction was like, damn, like in one day, that's amazing. But secondly, it was obviously you don't know the backstory of that person, how long he's been in the business and all that. But it just goes to see that it just goes to show that there were buyers and sellers in there, and like there are people that are like who have a dream job and came to spend their money in the things that they're passionate about. Then there's the other side who are vendors where that is their dream job, or this is they're hoping to make this as a dream job, like this is their side hustle. I met vendors who were like this is their side hustle, and they have a full time job. And I also met, like I just said earlier, there's who this is their full time job, and so it's just good to see
Yep.
like everyone is creating their own version of their dream job, and some people are actually creating it versus like having and going to work for somebody else.
Yeah, I
So I just
always
wanted to say that.
and that's an amazing story. Like you may never start off your career thinking that you're going to get that dream job that you wanted because let's say you did pursue something that was stable that will bring the money, right? And that depends on whether you came from money or not, right? I am sure people that come from family that are wealthy and so forth have that advantage of saying, you know what, I'm going to pursue my passion because I still have money support from my family to sustain me. Right? So I think there will always be that class difference that allows different audience members to pursue something, their dream
Mhm.
jobs, versus others that, let's say, aren't in the same situation and have the same sort of benefits. But yes, you could always start up a career, make some money, dabble a little bit on something on the side from the lawn stuff or this card stuff, and then turn your hobbies or passions into a reality. right? And we be really excited about it. So I think it is doable. It just depends on whether you have the courage, the entrepreneurship, right? Because it takes effort, right? There's a lot of behind the scenes stuff, research that you need to do, investment that you need to do with opening any business. So I agree. Now, besides passion and happiness and all that other stuff it'll bring, right? One of the things that going back to the, I guess, corporate life and work life balance, right? One of the things that we benefited in the pandemic during COVID was remote work. And I was really excited about it, right? And I thought that's going to be, we thought pandemic advanced the future of remote work
Work.
and our working conditions, our working environment, our working situations. For example, I know a lot of people that moved to other states, other countries, and were working full remotely because they thought that this was going to be a permanent thing. I think what we've witnessed in the last few years, and more so now, is that remote work is quietly dying. Um, what do you think that's true that it is dying? Do you think it might ever pick up? Where do you feel that remote work right now is? Where it
What's
will
the
head
status?
to?
Yeah. Yeah, no, I think it is dying. I think it's scaling down. I think I see both sides. I see the side of like, people have more flexibility, more choice when they are able to work remotely, right? And that makes people happy ultimately, right? Like if I can set my own hours, if I can work remotely, that alleviates the pain of commuting in some of the big cities that we live in, right? People that live in like commuting time sometimes takes a long time. It takes a large portion of your day. So I see why remote work is a big fan favorite. I'm a fan of that. I also see the other side too, right? The other side is where a lot of, you miss the camaraderie, you miss the office life, you miss the like to you miss engaging with your colleagues and coworkers. Now, granted, most
You
of the
mean the
time when you're in
office
the office,
politics?
I was about to say. So granted, like nobody's really like doing work, right? There's politics, there's a break room enter, right? There's so many other things you randomly, people passing by and talk. Like I think out of an 8 hour day, you're probably working 2 to 3 hours max, like real work. And the rest is just like, lunchtime, bathroom time, office politics, conversations here and there, and just somehow time flies. And so
Actually,
I
that's
see
a good
both
point that
sides.
you brought up because I never, I guess, thought of it that way. But if people are spending all this time, like, as you're saying, talking, etc., right, breaks, would that be equated to the amount of commute time that is sort of saved? So by going into the office, you sort of, I guess, waste time in certain ways or use up time in certain ways versus at home, you could say, well, I'm benefiting by not having all those distractions. But then I have potentially other distractions. I don't know.
Right.
Maybe
Yeah.
it's the
No.
same
Yeah.
thing.
Yeah. It is. So that's what. Yeah. I think it's like I see both sides of the spectrum. Right. I see the side if you're staying at home, that argument can be made of like, well, yeah, you're not doing office banter and dealing with office politics, but you're probably distracted at home with so many other things, right? That's around you. So they're like, if you're going to be distracted, I think corporate people, if you're going to be distracted, you might as well be distracted in an environment where you're distracted with your colleagues. I don't think that's the mindset of executives, but I also think that the reason why executives want you in the building in the office is few reasons. Number one, they're probably paying for the office space, obviously. And so they want to be able to know that their money is not being wasted. And then two, they feel like people are more productive when they're in office when I don't think executives walk the floor, the office floors, because if you really did walk the office floor on a random day, you'll see half the people are not working. And I'm not, this is my opinion, right? I'm not saying that everyone's lazy and all that. There are people out there who
And
are
not
like,
all companies are like that. Some companies are
yeah,
workaholics, right? So it depends
yeah,
on the
yeah.
company you work at.
Absolutely, yeah, and right, there's companies that investment bankers and so many other companies that are, people and companies work extremely hard, long hours of the day. But I am saying like there's probably a large portion of people that, yeah, like I said, they're only working 2 to 3 hours, like actual work, 2 to 3 hours max, right? The others are just banter and all these other things that are happening. So yeah, I see both sides. I see the benefit of remote work. I also see the semi benefit of being in office. I'm a fan of remote because to me, it makes me happy being able to like not deal with the commute and all that stuff. That alone, just a lot. And then also once you get to the office, yeah, you'll see some people. I think like going into the office once a week voluntarily is okay. I think once you start making things mandatory, I don't know if I like that. I think remote work, again, to answer your question, I think it's dying down or scaling back. I think that's the proper word, but I don't think it should. What are your
Yeah,
thoughts about that?
I'm of the similar opinion that I guess I'm of the hybrid approach where, and I don't think it should be any time you make anything voluntary, it tends to not happen, right?
But
For the
yeah,
most
yeah,
part, right?
true.
So for me, it's like, yeah, hybrid is the right approach because that way you get the benefits of both worlds, right? Some people argue, right, that CEOs, corporate say, well, by going into office, you get teamwork. You get to connect better with people. You get to see each other's faces, especially a new hire. So from that perspective, for sure,
Yeah,
definitely that in office meetup connection, team building
sure.
is necessary.
The only issue
So
is it doesn't happen in the cubicles, it happens in the break room.
correct. Well,
That's the issue. It's
well,
not like, "Oh, let me
yeah,
teach you the
if
ways."
your manager is now setting up in-person meetings where you're showing up in the office and you guys are
Yeah,
facing each other and talking, right? Not having virtual Zoom meetings, right? I feel like, well, now you're expected to stay alert, right? Expected to
yeah,
have a conversation, especially if it's one-on-one. Contribute, listen, right? Where I feel like you could hide behind a video screen and put your camera off, put yourself on mute, and you're like, "Is this guy listening to me? Is this person listening?" We don't know, right? So
yeah.
I think a hybrid approach is the right way to go about it, and that way it gives you that flexibility. Like especially like for example, when I was remote, that commute time allowed me to sleep a little longer in because I don't get much sleep in generally, I'm a night owl. And then similarly, by being able to end my day earlier because I have that 1 hour commute back and forth from the city, I was able to start my evenings. So that way, during the winter, I got a little bit more sunshine in my day, right? Or during the summertime, I was able to go out and do something at the evening because of that extra hour or two. So I
Yeah.
think that flexibility gives us both worlds, so we don't have to end up feeling like, and that's the problem. We got something, the remote work capability full time, right? Everyone was working from home. We saw the benefits of it, and then when you take away something that was good to some degree, it's just like it
We start
sucks,
complaining.
right?
Yeah, yeah,
Hey, you're gonna complain because you're like, well, we know it can be done. We saw it succeed. Companies were making crazy revenue, right? That's the other thing, right? It's not like companies were losing money and they were shutting
yeah.
down. It was actually a very productive year somehow,
Mhm.
right? People were even spending a lot on Amazon and all these online purchases. So all
Yeah,
the
I
statistics
remember.
shows positivity. So when you have all of this, proving and confirming that remote work does work, and now you're sort of scaling back. So I feel like it is dying. I feel like it's very hard to get a full remote job now. It's hard to come around hybrid jobs. So, and there is like this force of like, you need to be in office all the time. So I feel, and it comes off like controlling, right? I understand, right? There's that productivity concern, and effectiveness. And it just takes a few bad apples to mess up the opportunity for, the larger group of people. But you
Yeah,
should be able to, I'm sure there's production or productivity monitoring tools installed on people's laptop to be able to say, is this person really working? Right.
yeah. I heard they're
The
doing
long,
that.
I've heard
I
it's
heard
there, but they don't convey it from a legality perspective since they're, but when you do see that agreement when you load up any company laptop that says I agree to be monitored blah blah blah, if, and that this is the property of the company, they're basically saying everything and anything that you do we have control over. So
of
they
course,
could
yeah,
check your keystrokes, right?
yeah,
Your mouse moving, how many emails they're sending, but they're not going to verbally tell you because no one wants to be, I guess, under surveillance, right? So I and so I think there's both sides of the same coin. Hybrid would be right. I do not like this whole full remote concept because
so you don't like it?
here we are hearing robots, AIs are replacing us, right?
Yeah. Our last
So you can
episode, we talked about
have
AI
a robot
boyfriends.
barista, right? So what happened to the camaraderie and team meeting and team building if you're going to replace humans with robots, right? That's what you're is choosing to do to save money. So I don't think this
So you don't like the idea of an AI
dialogue of
coworker?
like, oh, we care about you being in the office and talking to people is fully true
So you don't
because we
like the
know.
concept? Yeah, of course we know. Yeah. You don't like the concept of an AI worker, coworker?
I'm
You
com-
you
I'm
you
fine
don't
with
see
like
you don't think that there's gonna be AI coworkers sitting next to you in the cubicle at some point in the next 20 years?
we're not going to see a person. We're just going to see computer machines that line up
A
factory
robot
floors. Like how automated factories are. That's just how company offices are going to be. So they're just going to have
in
computers
cubicles.
doing
Yeah,
everything,
yeah,
and even computers doing customer service, right? And
yeah.
each of them having their own name, own tone, own voice, whatever you want to call it, even their
But
own fake image, I guess, right?
they have agents doing that right now, AI agents, yeah.
Correct. So no, I'm not gonna. I don't expect to see a robot sitting next to me. That's expensive, right? It's just gonna be. I would have 100 people on the floor, and then it's gonna trim down to 90, 80, 70, and then you're like maybe the last 10 left that are just the mechanics to the computers and how to operate it, and whatever updates you might need to do to the programming and coding. You're there, but it's so I
I
do
like
feel like it's more of a control thing when you say you must
yeah,
be in the office. And it all comes down to money, right?
yeah.
Productivity, money. I don't think all these other HR-ish terms are, the main reason. They could be secondary reasons, but not the main reasons. So yeah, I hope
I
I
mean,
hope
I'm a fan. I'll be honest with you, I'm a fan of remote work more than hybrid. I understand, like I said to you before, I understand why hybrid is needed, but I think I'm just a fan of remote work. I think it cuts down commute time so much. It cuts. I think there's a better work life balance. You know, get to spend time with your family, or a hobby or whatever you choose to do. I think it gives you that time back. And I'm a big fan of that. I'm a big fan of controlling your own destiny. Like we just talked about. Big fan of like the concept of a dream job versus you creating your dream job, right? Like I'm a fan of anytime you can take back control over your own destiny or your own choices or your own way of life and work style. I think I'm a big fan of, and remote work falls in that spectrum. Just want to give
yeah,
you my
for sure.
thoughts there.
I think as long as the company and the managers are setting the goals, setting the project, objectives, and their employees are meeting and beating it, right? Showing that they're responsive, right? If I'm messaging someone and they're not taking 5 hours to respond to me or like 30 minutes delay versus if they're in the office, they'll be way more responsive. Like there are I think methods and approaches and ways to determine it all comes down to productivity, right? I think that's the biggest problem. So as long as employees can prove that, I don't see why not, right? I don't see why not the remote. And it's kind of, I feel like easy to assess once you know how productive someone is, right? With all this money, all this talk about jobs and like the dream job and remote work, it comes down to sometimes, especially the dream job topic, money, right?
Yeah,
And we talked about
yeah,
how in this economy things are pricey. We got the war going on, gas prices are going on. It's also affecting other, money or
yeah.
expenses throughout almost every category.
Absolutely,
Now,
yeah,
people still, especially, seeing people travel, YouTube, whatever, right? They see a lot of success, a lot of people enjoying life and living it, YOLO. You only live once. Do you think that sort of comes back and make people go more in debt, even though they might not be making that kind of money? So people going
yeah.
more in debt, I guess, and spending a lot to live that lifestyle, even though they can't afford it or they don't have the job to afford it. What do you think?
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, like, there's a lot of influence, right? There's a lot of influence. And we could talk about, like, me, for example. There's a lot of influence out there for you to
What have you
want
been
the
doing recently, Shaquille?
right, right. So I'll get into that. There's a lot of influence out there that makes you want to follow the crowd or makes you want to get into something, makes you want to, what's the word I'm looking for? Like come outside your comfort zone or makes you want to live a lifestyle that your financial, what's the word? Your financial kind of story doesn't allow you to live that life, right? So like
Yeah, like
you
people
may
look financially okay, right? But they could be quietly drowning.
absolutely, 100%. I'm one of them. I'm one of them. You know what I'm saying? So any sponsors want to sponsor us, help me get out of financial debt. You know, but
What is it that
reality,
has
all
been
jokes
taking
aside.
up your what
But
has been
let me tell you,
taking up your
yes, brother. Yeah. let me tell you, listen, for everyone out there, get you some real friends that won't make you spend money on things that, like you see them spending money on things because it sounds cool or whatever. And then you get your feet wet and then you realize your whole body's wet. Your feet is not wet anymore. You understand? And your
What
body
is it,
wets because
cards?
of that.
Is it this whole trading cards convention stuff you've been going to? Have you
Yes,
been inspired?
inspired is not the word, brother. It's influence. Influence. I wish I was only inspired. I went above inspired. I went to influence. I went from directly from
You're drowning.
inspiration to
You're
influence.
drowning right now.
I'm drowning. You understand? I'm drowning in influence and I'm drowning in debt. Both of them. Either way, I'm drowning, and I got no life
But
jacket.
can you also say
Okay.
you're drowning in passion?
Listen. Before the bill comes, I'm drowning in passion. After the bill comes, I'm drowning in sorrow. When the credit card bill comes, or when the I'm taking money from here, I'm robbing Paul to pay Peter. Basically, what I'm doing with my life. And so I'm like, okay, you know what? Like the passion I'm drowning in, absolutely. I'm feeding I'm feeling the energy. Like I'm in the race. And then when you like get a flat tire, you realize, oh my God, like I wasn't even supposed to be. What am I doing driving? I'm not even supposed to be on the racetrack. And then, next thing you know, you're like, okay, I'm halfway there. I got to keep going. And then what ends up happening is you think that there's the final stop. There is no final stop. You just keep going and going and going. So like people, same thing, the concept with the credit card, right? You think you're going to spend a little bit. I'm just going to spend a little bit or whatever the case is. And then that's not the way it works. Like you keep going because humans are creatures of habit, right? Like once you build a habit to do something good or bad, you eventually stick to it, or like life makes you stick to it. Of course, you at the end of the day, you have choices, right? You control your own choices and things like that. But controlling yourself to do anything is so difficult in our society because of social media, because of the influence that's around you, because of the environment that you live in. And nowadays, we everybody wants everything, right? Even though you can't afford it, you still want it. You want a piece of it. And what ends up happening is that when you get a piece of it, you end up wanting, if it's good, you want the whole thing, right? If you have a slice of pizza and it's really good, you'll take a second slice. And next thing you know, you go from second to fifth to the whole pie is done. And so
Yep.
that's what happens with everyone. I'm using that analogy. But you could imagine like that's what happens with everything, right? Like once you get a high of something, or once you get addicted to something, or once you're passionate about something, it's hard to come off of that. And for many different reasons, right? Everyone has different factors and different reasons for all the things that they do. But my point is going back to the whole like debt thing is it's hard to, unless you're very financially disciplined, which a lot of people are not because of the reasons I stated, of like the environment, right? The lifestyle that you currently live, the influence. Because of those things, it's hard to be financially disciplined. I'm not saying there are people out there that are financially disciplined no matter what, but there are a lot that are not, right? And like I'm one of them, I can tell you that I'm not. And I'm trying to learn and try to find a happy medium. But then that bar of like happy medium continues to rise. And when you continue to shift that bar and say, oh, like this is my threshold, like this is it, this is how much I'm going to spend on X, Y, and Z. And then when you meet that threshold, you're like, I can go a little bit more. And then what ends up happening is this is supposed to be your limit, and now you're drowned, right? Like you're over your limit. And that's with everything in life. And so I think like, it comes down to being financially disciplined. It's hard to be, it comes down to having the right habits. It comes down to having constraint. Right. It comes down to understanding the dynamics of your life, your lifestyle, your financial health, all of those things. And I think, and with inflation, as you know, like it's making it harder. So it's harder to have a balance. It's hard to have a limit when with inflation, things are already like so expensive. So if you're not like disciplined, then like you're always going to be drowning essentially in debt, whatever that is, not just credit cards, student loans, whatever, all of that stuff. So I gave you a
Yeah, no,
long-winded
I
answer,
think
but
you
yeah,
you hit a couple of key points. One is, the lifestyle. Based on the lifestyle of the people around us, the things that we end up enjoying and doing, our hobbies, whatever it might be, those might push us towards overspending, right? Getting in debt,
yeah,
or just maybe even perhaps if we think of it from another angle, economic reality of our jobs and so forth, right? Maybe our jobs aren't increasing enough,
yeah,
right? Stagnant wages, basically. Maybe they need to be increasing to be able to maintain certain standards of living, right? This could be just considered middle class living or average living or whatever you want to call it, right? Rising housing costs, right? So stagnant wages. So the economic reality might people coming out of school having a debt that they can't pay because it's really expensive. A bunch of things that are maybe not in our control as much, are going to impact what we can afford, right? And then we have the social media pressure. The social media pressure of people going on vacation, living a luxurious lifestyle, right? Having uh, rice every day, right? Whatever it might be, because of convenience and so forth. Even though making a meal at home might be one third the cost of ordering delivery every single
Mhm.
day. So there are all these sort of lifestyle habits that we end up applying. I mean, benefiting from. As I say, once you go broadband, it's really hard to go back down to dial-up. Right,
Mm.
that's causing this combination of reality versus discipline, right?
Yeah.
And at the end of the day, we can always say, yeah, it takes two to tango. So if your reality is crappy, you got to be more disciplined. And if your reality is more positive and helpful towards you living that lifestyle, great, right? Then everything is a win. Hopefully, over time, we get to see things improve, right? There are talks, for example, of a universal income, right? And there's a lot of debate on whether that's going to be a good thing or bad thing for society. We don't want a society that's very lazy and, not productive and just focus on passion, because that can also become not passion, I should say, like watching TV and entertainment, because that may not build a productive or helpful group of people in the world or in the society. But the other thing is that, well, if you're drowning in debt and you're not able to live a fulfilling life, that sucks too, right? So let's see where things lead up to, right?
Yeah. Yep. No.
What do
Yeah.
you think? I guess, do you think that things are gonna I know we talk a lot in our, discussion about how things are not working out to some point, right? But I'm hoping that there are people that want to make things work, right? And that will help, let's say, raise wages or raise whatever, right? To be able to have a more, the happier index that comes out, like what countries
Hmm.
are happier or people,
Yeah.
right? They're still living in the modern world. They're still facing all these sort of economic or lifestyle realities, right? But their people are happy. So they're doing something that hopefully applies to America, applies to other
Yeah.
countries where this isn't.
I mean, the issue is obviously happiness is subjective, but more importantly, I think happiness comes from balance, right? Happiness comes from balance for everything. If you have the right balance of anything in life, like you're gonna be what's the word? Not comfortable. You're content, right? Like you're gonna be content, and once you end up being content, that derives from happiness, right? And like that sometimes leads to happiness as well. So I think it all comes down to balance. I think in America, we don't have anything balanced. Nothing's balanced in America. Other countries, there are things that are like if due to inflation, expenses are rising, the income rises as well with it. So there's a balance. There's a happy medium. Here, nothing is
Right.
balanced here. The cost of anything versus the return of anything is so imbalanced, right? Like our national debt, like we're not making enough money for us to cover our national debt. That's why the national debt is higher. The price of milk and goods and services is higher than our income, right? There's no balance with anything in life in America. I've noticed that. Student debt, right? There's you get, they'll give you whatever amount of money that you want in student debt, but then they don't give you whatever amount of money in income to combat the student debt, to pay the student debt on time and as quickly as possible. So I think it all comes down to balance. And America is probably, not the best country that has a balance when it comes to whatever it is. I mean, I think these other countries do have it, right? And I think that leads to everything else.
Yeah, you can't have half your society sort of being powered by caffeine and Klarna, right? and pretending that
Well,
enjoying
you
you're
know, let's
enjoying
not
some meetings.
let's not
So
call out some let's not call out any companies. Klarna, if you listen, you want to sponsor us anytime, let's talk. Okay, we don't hate you or nothing like that. We appreciate you.
hey, no one hates caffeine either, but that's if that's what's gonna run us, right, and power us.
What is true? Yeah, yes, I agree with
Um,
that.
yeah, and so like, and sometimes like I feel like some people are like one unexpected expense away from like becoming motivational speakers. It's like I got a story to tell you, and imagine like the whole back in the days time once hopefully a lot of us live the age to get old and talk about these times, and hopefully in a positive way, right? Um,
Yeah, but
and
honestly, I think we're all blessed, right? Like, like I think. People in America, yes, we have a high national debt. We have a lot of crises that are happening in the United States, but we also, I think we're more privileged. I think Americans in general are more privileged than the rest of the world, right? We live in a first world country versus someone else living in a third world country. So our first world problems is probably like a third world person's dream, right? And that's the way I look at it.
Yeah,
And so,
very true.
yes, there's yes, there's a lack of imbalance in this country, but the fact that there is any kind of our imbalance is someone else's dream, right?
That's true.
Because they don't even have that. Like they don't. Our bad is someone's dream, literally, right? Because they don't even have they've never seen the concept and the idea of our bad. When I say
Yeah,
our, I mean
actually, now
America's
that
bad.
you're mentioning that, right? So I read up on this person. I think he's from Vietnam or something, and he was working in another country. I don't know if it was like Malaysia or Indonesia, and he was doing his his education in Malaysia. And it was an article that came up that I read up into, and he was saying how he had an opportunity. He was pursuing, I think, computer something with computer engineering or whatnot. But he was doing his university job. He was doing wait staff job at some company, right? To make money to pay for school while also picking up a coding internship, right? That he was doing at a company. And he was very productive. He got everything done. And that led him to a full-time job. And one of the reasons he credits to him landing that job in this sort of very tough competitive job market was his drive, his drive towards it, his discipline towards his consistency, like basically his enthusiasm, right? And he's like, that's what stands out now with companies and landing a job, that hard work mentality. And I was just reflecting on how tough it might have been for him to
Yeah,
land that, but he was so happy. Like, you're so joyous. Going through what I find is like very struggle. It's just a struggle, right? To have school plus a job plus an internship, and he was like struggling to like I had to do 2 hours, or I had to run this code, and I have to do this, do my wait staff job, and then I have to finish my final papers. And I was like seeing like, and there was a picture of him and how gracious and happy and joyous he was. And I was just like, when we look at that and then we look at what we have, and perhaps many of us didn't need to go through the same struggles to land where we are. Yeah, it does allow us to recognize how blessed we are, right?
yeah,
So I guess one of the things, I guess, with us and having the American dream, I think people were
yeah.
told to dream bigger, to spend bigger, to work harder, and build the perfect life. I think that's the dilemma we face, right? And now
Yes.
many are quietly asking, was that all worth it? Are we now, or is all of those dreams and aspirations causing us to feel stressed out? So maybe it was that bar that we set. As you said, your threshold of happiness should be here. But for whatever reason, we set it all the way up here. And that's where that imbalance might be. So we might be the
Mhm.
causer of our own doom.
Our demise. Yeah, that's true.
Huh?
We are right, and I mean, it comes down to nature versus nurture, right? And like this can be a whole nother episode, but I'll make it quick. The environment. I said this quote before, but I'm gonna say it again. And this is not my quote for this episode to end. But your exposure dictates experience, and I'm saying that because it's relating back to nurture versus nature. That if we're in an environment, we grew up very differently, right? We grew up in different environments. We didn't grow up in the best environment in terms of location. We grew up in the Bronx, right? And back in the days, a lot of people would say that, like they would be scared of the Bronx, right? But the Bronx was our home. Like we're passionate about the Bronx. Like this is where we grew up and brought up, and everything, all of our the good and the bad came out of the Bronx. And so, but that was our environment. Now we were able to quote unquote get out. And again, there's nothing wrong with the Bronx. We still have lives and families over there. But like we were able to get out. But our parents were able to do whatever they could with the best of their ability in terms of to nurture us to be able to set us up for success for the future. And that it means to change the nature of our environment, right? To change the nature part. So growing up in terms of nurture versus nature, the way we were brought up was different versus the way our kids are growing up. right? And so the environment, their nature is different also, and it's going to be different. And I say this to all say is because you are a product of your environment. Therefore, when it comes to any kind of threshold, whether it's a financial one or just a life one, the concept of discipline and control and balance, it's not easy for a lot of people. I've met all kinds of people from all around the world, from different dynamics and different colors and races and religions and different financial capacities. I've seen people at the lowest of the lowest where they don't know how to get out of their environment. Like they're stuck. This is all they know, and this is all they will know, and this is where they were born, and this is exactly where they're gonna die. That's it. They've never been outside of the Bronx. They've never been outside of their neighborhood. Believe it or not, there are people out there. And I've also known that there are people who, who have traveled to every continent in the world and every corner of the world they've traveled, right? Because they have access to money and all these other things. And so their environment, their threshold is going to be so much more different because I believe because of nature versus nurture, because of the exposure they got from the beginning when they grew up versus like someone who never got out of their city, never got out of their borough, never got out of their neighborhood because that person's exposure is different. Their threshold of anything is going to be different because of how they grew up. Those are my thoughts essentially just about that.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. As I said, like you could be in a farm your entire life and say you have the most happiest life, and that was your exposure, right? And until you see life out there, you're not going to be able to say or compare it to say, well, and I think that's going to drive our expectations, living in a city life versus a rural life and whatnot. Great points. I guess for our audience, I want you guys to talk, give us some comments, give us the thoughts on, would you take less money for full remote freedom,
Mhm.
right? Would you think that financial stress cause more lifestyle choices or economic reality? Is financial stress caused by lifestyle choices or economic reality? Do you still think dream jobs exist? Um,
Yes.
and what do you think matters more now? Money, flexibility, or meaning? So think about that. Let us know your thoughts. As always, like,
Comments,
subscribe,
messages. Yep.
and be in touch until the next episode.
Here,
Bye, guys.
here.